Afternoon. So Charles and Adam had actually asked me to share some thought-provoking nuggets before you go into this give and get session and noodle on it. So, and by the way, thank you, Charles, Adam, and the entire New York Times team. This has been, I don't know what you thought, but this has been a fascinating day, right? So many great ideas. Fascinating. All right, so I only have 6 short hours to dive in with you, so I have 10 minutes. So here's a nugget for you to dive into, or noodle on for this give and get session. My entire career has been spent measuring performance and engagement. How do you measure performance and engagement? Company after company after company. And when you do that all the time, you find the same discovery. You always find the same discovery. We haven't talked about it much today at all, but it's relevant to everything that we're trying to do. Collaboration, innovation, diversity, inclusion, selection, development, all these things are completely seen through this lens. And the discovery is this. It's range in performance. Whether it's performance, engagement, whatever the measure is, there's range between two teams in the same organization doing exactly the same kind of work. Normally we think that companies do have one culture and this company's culture is different from another. But you go inside a company, what you find is there's far more variation between two teams in the same company doing exactly the same work than there is between two companies. Here's one example. It's a retailer. I pick it because every single one of their 8,000 stores is supposed to be exactly the same as one another. You'd all know exactly who they are. They're probably going to be on the best companies to work for list later on this week. I won't mention their name. But they've been incredibly good at building a great culture. The theory of the company, if I can have a slide or two here, the theory of the company is the more affluent the community, the more profit the store should make. You plot out all the stores, you do get this nice line. So the more affluent the community, the more money the store makes. Plot out all the stores, though you get this. You get this sort of Milky Way of stores. You've got a store like this one that's making an awful lot less money than you would expect. And then rather than letting your eye go left, right, which you tend to do with a scatter plot, let your eye go north. Go up if you're struggling with north. So let your eye go up, and you'll see there's a store like this, has almost exactly the same as the economic potential at the bottom, right? It's just making a ton more money. Now remember, there's 50 people that work in the dot at the top, and there's 50 people that work in the dot at the bottom. They are paid, selected, trained, developed in exactly the same way. They're selling the same stuff to the same people in exactly the same kind of towns. We've controlled for geography. And yet there's huge difference in what it's like to work up here versus down here. I don't know what wakes you up at night, but one of the things that wakes me up at night is wondering what the heck is going on in the dot at the top that isn't going on in the dot at the bottom. And clearly, I don't have a particularly interesting life, but I think that's a meaningfully... that was a joke. I have a very interesting life, I think. But clearly, if we're going to build lots of great organizations, we've actually got to frame it this way, right? We've got to build lots and lots and lots of teams like the best teams. That's what we're all talking about. We may not have said it exactly that way today, but that's what we're doing. We're basically saying, what the heck is going on up there? Because everyone here has the same culture, supposedly, same way of being selected, trained, same everything. But boy, there's huge variation. And the y-axis here could be profit, it could be accidents on the job, it could be lost work days, it could be employee engagement, whatever it is. You find range. Whenever you measure anything, folks, you find range inside the same company. So if we want to build a great company, we've got to have a deep understanding of what the heck is going up here so we can build more teams like the best teams. There are 2 reasons why that's wicked tricky to do. We know that one of the key differentiators in high-performing versus low-performing teams is it's the team leader. I mean, if you want to take 20 years of research and go, what's the big discovery? You go, it's the team leader, stupid. It's the team leader. Almost any research ends with, it's the team leader. People join companies, as you know, and then physically or psychologically, they quit their boss. So we know the team leader is super important. And yet, first problem is, we don't build any tools for team leaders. Almost all the tools that you can think of that relate to talent in an organization are built for HR, aren't they? They're not built for team leaders to actually, I don't know, use. If you think about any of these tools, first of all, they're all siloed. So you've got the performance management tool, doesn't talk to the employee engagement tool, doesn't talk to your 360, doesn't talk to your leadership development, doesn't talk to your personality assessment, doesn't talk to your enterprise-wide recognition. All of these tools are separate, different languages, different structures, and that poor team, very busy team leader is supposed to charge with making sense of it all, which of course he or she can't. Probably the most egregious example is employee engagement. Most employee engagement sounds like this, right? Or actually looks like this. You take a file feed from your HRIS system, you sort of lock it in, who reports to who. You take your engagement survey, you deploy it to your HRIS system structure. 6 weeks later, after many emails bugging people, you get the data back. The first people to get the data back is not the team leader, it's HR, who cleans it, hands it up to the CEO, who makes some broad pronouncement, recognition is up and communications is down, and we do a town hall meeting or whatever. And then one level below the CEO then gets the data, they dive into it. And then 3-4 months later, the person whose data it is gets the data, and the poor HR person, and I know this because I've done this a whole bunch of times while I was at Gallup, you walk in with your little report and you go, here's your data. And the team leader goes, wait, it says n equals 7. I don't have 7 people. I got 13 people now. Are the 7 people part of the 13, or is it entirely different at 7? And you, the HR person, you go, I don't know. Just shut up and do your action plan, and we'll come back again next year. That's what engagement is. Right? It's a parallel universe. All of these things, performance, engagement, learning, diversity, inclusion, these are all parallel theoretical abstractions that have no real resonance with the real world. Team leaders don't use them. And I know it's not just a tools thing, but as Marshall McLuhan said, we make our tools, and then our tools make us. So pretty much everything that we've talked about today depends upon a particular team leader using a real tool in the real world, and they don't. So that's the first problem for almost everything that we're talking about here. It doesn't come together in the world of the team. Every CEO in this room, you don't actually know which teams exist in your organization and who's on them. It's weird. We all know teams are super important, but we're functionally blind to the most important organizational unit of analysis in our companies, the team. How do we know this? Because if you think about how we see teams, we see organizations through these sort of who reports to who boxes on an org chart, don't we? Most HRIS systems, human resources information systems, as in who works for us, how do we pay them, how they're selected, are actually, and rightly, extensions of financial systems. They're extensions of enterprise resource planning systems. They help us know where the budgets are and how to pay people within those budgets or invest. And that's great. We should do that. But that's not where the work is it? As most of you know, most work happens in much more dynamic, agile ways. Most real work, happens super collaboratively, doesn't it? There's a team leader somewhere will pull together a group of people, cross-departmentally or cross-functionally or cross-country. Some of the people are leaders on one team and followers in another. Some of the people work for the company, but let's face it, in a lot of companies, many of the people on the teams doing the work are contingent workers who don't even work for us. And yet that's where all of the creation and collaboration and innovation, that's where it all happens. And we can't see them. We can't see teams. Which means almost everything that we try to do to build great cultures, innovation, collaboration, all the stuff we were talking about this morning about diversity and inclusion, performance, engagement, learning, all those things happen or fail to happen on dynamic teams, and we can't see them. So if you're deploying all of your stuff against not these dynamic teams, but against structured boxes on an org chart, it's almost like you're doing everything in a parallel, kabuki, shadow puppet-like universe. We've got to get into the real world of where does diversity, inclusion, and collaboration and innovation actually happen on a team? Oh gosh, we can't see them. What's the solution? Well, there's 2 solutions, I think. One of them is we've got to realize that HR is not the source of truth of which teams exist and who's on them. The team leader is. The team leader, whatever we mean by team leader, it's anybody who pulls together a group of people where they invite people onto a team to say, let's go take that hill, and a bunch of people go, yes, okay, that's a team, and that's a team leader. The source of truth for which teams exist in an organization and who's on them is not HR's job, it's the team leader's job. They're the ones that can tell us where the work is actually happening. How do we get them to actually serve that role as the source of truth? Well, we could build tools for team leaders that they actually want to use. If you think about what a busy team leader actually wants to answer in building a team, there isn't 14 different silos of stuff, is there? Actually, it's just 3 questions. If any of you build a team, you've only got 3 questions, don't you? Number 1, what are the particular strengths or capabilities of the people on my team? I want to know that. That isn't a weird, abstract HR question. That's like, I want to know the strengths and the capabilities of my people. Second, I want to know what they're doing right now. What are they doing? What are they working on? Not the goals they put in the stupid form at the beginning of the year. Those goals were irrelevant by the 3rd week of the year, weren't they? We all know that. The year is 52 little sprints. So this week, what are we all working on? And then thirdly, how engaged are they right now? How are they feeling right now? And that's what anyone who builds a team here is thinking about. What are the capabilities of people? What are they doing? How are they feeling? If we could build tools that actually answer that question, we'd get uncoerced voluntary usage of those tools, and lo and behold, we would see where the work's happening. Just by way of closing, if you want to see what that will look like, watch a 14-year-old girl or boy play FIFA on Xbox. It looks like this. If you're going to, the first thing you do is you pick your players. Because you pick your team, right? The first thing you can do when you play FIFA on Xbox is you decide the team. You decide what the team is called, you decide what the name of the team is. Maybe you got 2 teams or 3 teams or 4 teams, but you're the one responsible for building the teams. You pick the players. These are employee profile cards or whatever, right? Team profile cards, you pick them. You might dive in and go, tell me more about that one. But then after looking and searching and slicing and dicing, you put your little team together, and it looks like this. This is the view of what you do when you play FIFA. Here's your team answering the question basically like, what are the capabilities of my people? What are the strengths of my people? What's the right configuration for those people? Then over here on the left, you've got, what are they working on? It changes after every game, doesn't it? If ever you've played FIFA, you change the formation after every game. Every game it changes after every game, just in case you might get a better edge to win. Over here, you've got your employee engagement survey, chemistry score. Now, this, of course, is not a survey. You're not actually asking these people because they're not real. But you're deriving the chemistry score from which league they came from, which era they came from, which language they speak. And you, when you pull this all together, you're trying to build a really great team that's working on the right stuff, that feels super engaged. The best players, FIFA, Xbox, aren't the ones with a team of 11 Messis. In fact, the real kudos comes from beating the team of Messis with a team of misfits that you've put together perfectly. And you don't have to force anyone to do this. It's not like your mother is emailing you all the time, come on, play Xbox. You can't get people to stop doing this. Xbox actually knows that people spend far more time building the teams than they do playing the games. So, for all of us interested in building more diverse, more inclusive, more collaborative, more innovative, more engaged, higher performing organizations, we have to remember all of those happen in a team or not. And the team, therefore, is the most important unit of analysis, which means we've got to serve the team leader with tools that they actually want to use. If we do that, we'll move outside or move away from the theoretical world of abstractions about the recent past, and instead we'll be able to engage with real team leaders doing real work in the real world with real people. That, I hope, is thought-provoking and something for you to noodle on. Thanks.